She was only 8 years old, screaming, kicking, begging for her life, held down by two hefty men. Please, Mommy, don't kill me. But her cries fell on deaf ears. Her stepmother just laughed. Drop her in the pit. Bury her alive. I'm done with her. And just like that, she was swallowed by the earth. Her voice gone. But why would a woman do this to an innocent little girl? What crime did an 8-year-old commit to deserve such cruelty? This is a story of betrayal, greed, fear, and the unthinkable. A story that will leave you in shock. A child buried alive by her stepmother. Subscribe now and watch the full story unfold. You won't believe what happens next. It was a quiet Saturday morning. Inside the grand mansion of Chike, the mighty owner of C. Kitoko Company, chaos suddenly struck. One moment he was walking down the stairs. The next, he collapsed like a tree hit by lightning. Elowin! Elowin! The housemaid screamed, her voice trembling like a leaf in the wind. His wife, Elowin, rushed in barefoot, her mourning robe flying behind her. She knelt beside her husband, slapped his cheeks gently, and shouted, Chike! Chike! Don't do this nonsense this early morning. Please open your eyes. But Chike didn't respond. She grabbed her phone with shaky fingers and called the family doctor. Dr. Bayo, please come fast. My husband just slumped and he's not waking up. If you waste time, I'll surely bite your head. Minutes felt like hours. When the doctor finally arrived, his face told the story before his mouth did. Elowin, your husband has been battling a serious health issue, he said calmly, wiping sweat from his bald head. In fact, he's been fighting it since before his first wife passed. Elowin blinked, her heart pounding like a drum. Wait, what? The doctor continued. We didn't want to scare you, so he kept it quiet. But this episode, it's bad. Even if he survives this one, he may not have long time with you again. Her tears started slowly, one drop at a time, like raindrops before a storm. Then it poured. Elowin wailed like someone who just lost access to their bank account. No, Chike, you can't do this to me. I'm too beautiful to be a widow. Who will take care of me and the girls? Your daughters and mine. We're all going to be lost without you. She fell to her knees beside him again, shaking him as if love could wake him up. Then his eyelids fluttered. Chike opened his eyes slightly and gave her a weak smile, the kind of smile that says, Don't cry too much. I'm not dying just yet. His voice was faint but clear enough. Elowin, don't panic. My will is ready. Elowin froze. Will? She echoed, blinking. Yes, he continued. I didn't want drama when I finally go. The original is with my lawyer, and a copy is in the safe, in the bedroom. He coughed lightly, then closed his eyes again. Elowin stared at him, eyes wide, her mind racing. So the man knew he was dying all along? And didn't say a word? This man must have taken stubbornness as a course in university. She looked at him and muttered, You even wrote a will without telling me. Typical Chike, always planning like a secret agent. But deep down, her heart was breaking. The air in the house suddenly felt heavy. The silence screamed louder than any siren. The man who held the family together, the man with all the power, was lying there, helpless. And his secrets, whatever they were, now lived in that safe. And that was only the beginning. At midnight, the night was dark and still. No wind, no noise, just the soft ticking of the golden wall clock and the steady hum of the air conditioner. But Elowin wasn't asleep. How could she sleep when her husband, Chike, was still lying unconscious in the ICU, clinging to life like a thread about to snap? She stood alone in their bedroom, the light dim, her heartbeat loud in her ears. Then, like a thief in her own house, she tiptoed to the wardrobe, opened the hidden panel, and stared at the safe. This man said the copy is here, she whispered to herself, a small smirk creeping onto her face. Let's see how generous you are with the truth. She typed in the code, his mother's birthday. It clicked open. She began digging through the pile of files, folders, and sealed envelopes like a hungry dog searching for a buried bone. For hours, she searched. Her silk nightgown clung to her sweaty body. Her hair was scattered. Her face, once always smiling and powdered, now looked desperate. Then her hands froze. "There you are," she muttered, pulling out a thick brown envelope labeled in bold letters. "Last will and testament, Chike o Kitoko." Her fingers trembled slightly. She opened it gently and pulled out the document. She sat on the edge of the bed, reading line after line. But when her eyes reached the section that read distribution of assets, her body went cold. Her jaw dropped. "No, no, you didn't just do this." It was written in clear English. "I owe my success to my late wife, who stood by me when I had nothing. For this reason, 80% of my properties, investments, and shares shall go to our daughter, Celestina. The remaining 20% shall go to my second daughter, Vanessa." That was it. No mention of Elowin. Not even a thank you for marrying him. Not even a side note saying, "Elowin, God bless you." She stared at the paper, blinking, breathing slowly, like a volcano trying not to erupt. Then she stood up, her lips twisted into a tight, sarcastic smile. "Ah, so this is it," she said aloud to the empty room. "No problem now. Since your precious daughter is the apple of your eye, let's see how you'll live, and let's see what happens to the property if anything happens to her." Her voice was calm, but her eyes were sharp, cold, dangerous. She began pacing the room, still holding the will. "I cooked, cleaned, smiled, and even tolerated your snoring. For this, I gave you a daughter. Still not enough?" She stopped suddenly and looked up at the ceiling like she was speaking to someone in the sky. "Chike, may God keep you alive long enough to see what becomes of your decision." Then, she folded the will neatly, placed it back inside the envelope, returned it to the safe like nothing happened, and walked out of the room. The clock struck 3 a.m. But for Elowin, the night was just beginning. 1 month passed like a gentle breeze. The walls of the mansion that once echoed with panic were now calm, too calm. Celestina and Vanessa returned home from boarding school, dragging their bags through the gates with excitement written all over their faces. The air smelled like freedom, the kind that only came after weeks of hostile food and strict matrons. "Home, sweet home," Vanessa shouted, hugging her big sister. Celestina smiled, pulling her close. "We are back home again." "I missed home." Vanessa laughed. "I'm taller than before, and I will soon reach your height if you continue to leak ice cream." They giggled as the gatekeeper helped them with their bags. They didn't know, couldn't even guess, the quiet fire burning beneath the surface of their beautiful home. Their father, Chike, was back home and recovering slowly. The doctors called it a miracle. But Celestina and Vanessa didn't care about medical terms. They were just happy Daddy was alive. As for Elowin, you would never guess. She was the perfect stepmother, always smiling, always cheerful. Her hugs felt warm, her kisses gentle. The girls ran to her shouting, "Mommy, we love you. You're our bestie." And she would laugh, throw her hands in the air and say, "Aha, you want to finish me with love?" She still took them out for ice cream on Saturdays, just like before. She still drove them to the boutique, told them to pick whatever clothes they wanted. She even joined them to take silly selfies in front of the mirror, making duck faces. The peace in the house didn't shift. The flowers still bloomed. The cook still served jollof rice with fried plantain on Sundays. The girls still whispered secrets under the covers at night and painted each other's nails in the bathroom. Everything was normal. Maybe too normal. No one mentioned the will. No one knew what Elowin had seen, and Elowin, she wore her smile like a mask stitched to her skin. She played the role perfectly, but deep in her heart, a plan was growing, slow, silent, deadly. And the girls? Innocent, sweet, blind to the storm that had already begun, the kind of storm that doesn't make noise until it hits. 4 years passed like nothing. Peace remained in the house. The girls grew older, wiser, and even more beautiful. Celestina turned 12, now glowing like the morning sun. Vanessa, now 9, never stopped calling Elowin Mommy Bestie. Chike traveled again, just another business meeting in South Africa. a routine. He trusted his wife, trusted his home, and trusted the love between the girls. The house was calm. Too calm. 2 days after he left, Elowen stepped into Celestina's room with a sweet smile. "Dress up, baby girl. Let's go to the market. Just you and me today." Celestina was excited. "Really? Just us?" She hugged her. Best day ever. They went out like mother and daughter on a bonding trip, bought groceries, joked around the fruit stand, and even took a selfie with an old woman selling tomatoes. But on the way back, the car slowed and stopped. Celestina raised her brows. "Wait, what just happened? Why is the car off?" Elowen opened the bonnet, looked in, then sighed dramatically. "Looks like we've broken down. What a shame." Celestina rolled her eyes. "This is ridiculous, Mom. This car is new. Call the driver to bring another car. We are not sleeping here, are we?" Elowen chuckled lightly and said, "I think today you'll enter public transport for the first time. It builds character." Celestina laughed. "You're hilarious. Best holiday gift ever." She quickly dialed Vanessa. "Guess what? Mom's car broke down. I'm coming home with the groceries in a public vehicle. She'll wait with the mechanic." Vanessa groaned. "What? That's not fair. Why didn't she take me along too? I want to board public vehicle." They both laughed. A normal conversation. A goodbye without knowing it was forever. As soon as the call ended, Elowen's face changed. The smile disappeared. Her eyes became cold. "Enter the car," she said sharply. Celestina blinked. "Mom, I thought the car was." "Shut up or I slap you," Elowen barked. Celestina froze. Her chest tightened. Elowen had never shouted at her before, not even once. Her voice sounded like it belonged to a stranger. The car started. They drove in silence. Mile after mile, the familiar roads disappeared. Soon, they entered a quiet, abandoned area. A dusty path led them into what looked like an old village no one visited anymore. Celestina wanted to ask questions, but her lips stayed glued. Fear gripped her throat. When the car finally stopped, two men stood waiting, as if they had been standing there all day. Without a word, they rushed to her side, opened the door, and dragged her out like a sack. "What's going on?" she cried. "Mom, what's happening?" One of the men laughed. "Our sealed deal has arrived." Then Celestina saw it, a shallow hole already dug, the sand piled beside it. She turned to Elowen. "Mom, why? What is this?" Elowen folded her arms and said calmly, "I saw the will. You think I'll sit back and watch you take everything? My daughter gets only 20%. You're not special, Celestina, and I won't let you become the heiress." Celestina fell to her knees. "Please, I don't want anything. I promise. I'll give it up. Please don't do this. I'll disappear. I'll go far away. Just please don't kill me." Her hands shook. Her voice cracked. Her eyes wide with terror. But Elowen's face was stone. She gave the signal, and before Celestina could scream again, the men pushed her into the hole. She fell hard, cried out, tried to climb out, but dirt began to fall, first in handfuls, then faster, then heavier. "Mommy, please, I love you, please," she screamed, but her voice was buried along with her body. The sand kept falling until the cries stopped, until everything was silent again. Elowen stood there, watching. No tears, no second thoughts, just one deep breath. Then she turned around, brushed imaginary dust from her dress, and walked away. It started as a normal evening, but the sun set, and Celestina didn't return. The groceries were missing. Her phone was off. And Elowen, she said she'd take a bus home. Maybe she stopped by a friend's house. But hours passed. Then a whole day. Then two. Panic swallowed the house. Chike was called back urgently. He arrived with fear in his eyes and sorrow already settling in his bones. His voice shook as he held Vanessa tightly. "Where's my daughter? Where's Celestina?" Vanessa, now pale with worry, had been crying nonstop. Her voice was hoarse. "Daddy, she said she was on her way. She promised me. She said she'd be back with the groceries. I should have told her not to come alone." Chike turned to Elowen, desperation in his voice. "What happened? You said she took a bus. Which bus? From where?" Elowen looked away. I don't remember. Everything happened so fast." You don't remember? Chike screamed. His knees gave way and he sank to the floor, holding his chest like his heart was cracking open. Authorities were informed. The news spread like wildfire. Celestina's pictures were printed and passed around on walls, street corners, bus parks, hospitals, schools, police stations. Every terminal, every road checkpoint was checked. But nothing. No trace. No clue. No voice. Vanessa stopped eating. She sat in Celestina's room every day, hugging her pillow, rocking back and forth like a child. Her eyes swollen, her spirit broken. She's not missing, she whispered to herself every night. She's just taking a long walk. She'll be back. Chike locked himself in his study for days. He wouldn't eat. He wouldn't talk. He stared at her childhood pictures on the wall, touched the frame and whispered, "My first light, my miracle. Where did you go?" Regret hit him like a wave, for not protecting her more, for not being home, for trusting too much. Vanessa knocked softly on his door one night, holding Celestina's favorite pink scarf. "Daddy? Smell this. It still smells like her." He broke. They wept together for hours, deep, heavy sobs that shook the walls. Chike held her tight. "If I lose her, I lose myself. God, please, bring my daughter back. Take everything, just not my Celestina." But heaven stayed silent, and in that silence their home slowly crumbled under the weight of grief. Chike was never the same again. The man who once stood tall like a mountain now moved like a fading shadow. He stopped going to the office, stopped picking calls, stopped attending meetings. He simply sat, most times in Celestina's empty room, gazing at her favorite teddy bear, as if staring long enough would bring her back through the door saying, "Daddy, I'm back." But she never did. Grief consumed him slowly, day by day, piece by piece. His once booming business, Skitoko Empire, began to crumble. First, a few canceled deals. Then, key clients pulled out. Soon after, loyal staff began to resign, one after the other. But Chike didn't care. His mind was no longer in the boardroom. It was lost in the echoes of the past. Laughter, memories, and the sound of his daughter's voice dancing through the halls. Elowen, watching the slow collapse of the empire she once dreamed of inheriting, remained silent. For a while. But not forever. 2 years later, after every effort to revive the business had failed, she approached him. The house was quiet. Chike sat in the living room, staring blankly at the wall. "Chike," she began gently. "It's been 2 years. Celestina, she's not coming back. Maybe it's time. Maybe you should focus on rebuilding the business. Maybe update your will." She watched him closely. No response, not a word, not even a blink. His lips trembled as if he were holding back something far too deep for language. She pressed again. "I mean, we've lost so much already. At least..." "I said nothing," Chike snapped, voice quivering. Silence. Then, slowly, he rose, his movements heavy, like a man twice his age. "That business, that empire, meant nothing without my Celestina. Let it crash. Let it all burn." And he walked away, dragging his feet. Elowen clenched her fists. All the planning, all the waiting, and what remained? A broken man. Empty buildings. As months passed, Skitoko Empire, once the pride of the city, faded into dust. The glass towers were sold, factories shut down, the name Chike vanished from headlines, replaced by pitiful whispers. And Elowen? She watched helplessly as the dream she once tried to seize slipped through her fingers like sand. Vanessa was now fully back home, not because she'd graduated or even wanted to return, but because they could no longer afford her school fees. No more empire, no chauffeur, no birthday parties, just memories and an empty bank account. The only thing left was the family mansion, once a symbol of prestige, now a ghost of lost glory. Eventually, Chike gave in. With heavy steps and a heavier heart, he put the mansion up for sale. 2 days later, his lawyer called. "Sir, it's strange. The same man who bought your company, your towers, your factories, he's the one bidding for the mansion too. Doesn't that seem odd?" Chike sighed. His voice sounded like the echo of a man who'd lost everything. "Let him have it. Same person or not, I need to survive. Just enough to rent a place and begin again. That's all." 2 weeks later, the deal was sealed. The mansion was no longer theirs. They moved into a cramped, fading apartment on a noisy street. 2 small rooms, squeaky doors, cracked tiles. No staff, no staircase, no luxury, just survival. Chike began selling small bags of rice and beans by the roadside. Elowen, beside him, sold soft drinks from a cooler, shouting, "Buy your cold Coke here!" Every evening, their makeshift stall turned into a drama stage. Arguments flew like mosquitoes, over change, over pepper, over who left the spoon unwashed. Elowen, must you shout every single day? And must you act like you're still CEO of an empire, Chike? You can't even sell ordinary beans in peace. Vanessa, always stuck between them, would try to play peacemaker. Mummy, Daddy, please, people are watching. But the stares didn't matter anymore. They were no longer the Kitokos of the glass tower. They were just another broken family, struggling to survive. One fateful day. It was one of those days where the sun itself felt bored. No customers, no footsteps, just flies dancing around her head and the sound of a creaking umbrella pole above Elowen's shop. She sat there, arms folded, mouth twisted in frustration. God, what kind of useless day is this? She muttered. Even poor people no day eat again? Then suddenly, a shiny black car pulled up right in front of her stall. Elowen sprang to her feet, irritated. Hey, if you know you're not coming to buy anything, don't block my shop, I beg. My customers need to see I'm here. The car door opened. Out stepped a young lady, graceful, elegant, dressed like someone who had no business being in a poor neighborhood. She smiled warmly, as though Elowen's harsh voice didn't exist. Good afternoon, Ma. Elowen blinked, confused. The lady continued, soft and sweet. Please, how much is a Congo of rice? What about beans and Gary? And the drinks? Within minutes, she had bought almost everything in the stall, from the rice and beans down to the pure water sachets, and even the sugary drinks nobody had touched in days. Elowen's mood flipped like light in a storm. On! My daughter, may God bless you! In fact, if I see just 10 of your kind, I swear poverty go pack kamot for my life! The woman laughed lightly, holding the last bag of rice. Elowen was already opening her drawer to prepare change when the lady paused, looked at her, and smiled strangely. Madam Elowen, she said gently, how is Celestina? Everything inside Elowen froze. Her bones, her voice, her heart. It was like her soul left her body for 2 seconds. Her lips parted to speak, but no sound came out, not even a whisper. The woman smiled again, her gaze calm but deep. Please send my greetings to her whenever she comes around. And with that, she turned, entered her luxurious car, and drove away as if she'd never come. Elowen didn't move. She didn't blink. She couldn't even feel her hands anymore. Her breath came out in jerks, her heart pounding like war drums. It took her full 10 minutes to notice that the woman didn't take everything she bought. She even forgot her change. But Elowen couldn't bring herself to touch the leftover items. Her hands trembled, her chest tightened, her mind ran wild. Who is she? How does she know Celestina? Is she her ghost? But how? How does she know my name? She called my name, Madame Elowen? She staggered backward and sat heavily on the stool. The world felt like it was closing in. That one visit had shaken her more than the loss of Chike's business, more than the daily fights with him. Even more than the memory of that day in the lonely village. Because now, something was wrong. Terribly wrong. And for the first time in years, Elowen was afraid. 6 months had passed since that mysterious lady visited Elowen's shop and asked about Celestina. Since then, Elowen hadn't known peace. She had stopped sleeping well. She would wake up in cold sweat, haunted by dreams of a voice whispering, please don't kill me. But she never spoke a word to anyone, not even Chike. Fear was tightening her chest day by day. Then came that unforgettable morning. Vanessa was outside, sweeping the compound like every other day, when she heard the sound. 4 sleek black cars rolling into their dusty compound. The gatemen, confused, had stepped aside. Nobody had ever visited them with even a kike, not to talk of luxury cars and bodyguards. From the cars stepped out four well-dressed young men, an elderly man, an elegant elderly woman, and three uniformed policemen who remained by the cars like statues. Silence swallowed the compound. Vanessa's hand froze on the broom. Chike, who had just come out with his cup of Gary water, nearly dropped it. Elowen, sitting on the veranda peeling onions, turned slowly, her knife slipping from her hand. Everyone stared, confused, intimidated, wondering, who are these people? Then, to their greatest surprise, the elderly man walked straight toward them. He stopped in front of Chike and said respectfully, "Good morning, sir." Chike was too stunned to speak. Elowen's voice trembled as she responded, Good morning, sir." The man gave a warm smile and gestured toward the others. "We're here to see you and your family, sir." Chike swallowed hard. "You're welcome, please. Vanessa, bring out a bench for our guests." Within minutes, they were all seated in the dusty, humble yard of the once mighty Chike family. Then the elderly man cleared his throat. "We came to make our intentions known to you, sir. My son here," he gestured at the tall, handsome young man beside him, "is in love with your daughter. That's why we are here." Elowen screamed. She jumped up and danced in circles, her wrapper flying. "Oh, Jehovah! You remembered me at last, Vanessa! Dress up quickly! Our story has changed today." Chike's eyes widened in disbelief, his heart pounding with a strange mix of hope and confusion. Elowen was already running toward the room to fetch Vanessa. "Oh, don't worry. She'll dress well and come greet you properly," she said breathlessly. "You have our blessing already." Moments later, Vanessa came out, glowing in her best gown, her face full of hope and expectation. She smiled shyly and greeted them all, bowing slightly like a bride-to-be. But instead of smiles, she met a sea of blank, emotionless faces. The air grew tense. Then, the elderly woman looked at the elderly man and gave a nod. He adjusted his seat, cleared his throat, and said firmly, "This is not the bride we came for." Dead silence. Chike's cup dropped. Elowen's eyes blinked rapidly. "Sorry. What?" The man repeated gently, but clearly, "We are here for your first daughter, Celestina." Elowen staggered. Her knees buckled. Vanessa gasped. "What?" Chike stood slowly, face pale as ashes. "What did you just say?" The young man stood and spoke for the first time. "Celestina is the woman I love, and with your permission, I want to marry her." Elowen grabbed her chest. The world began to spin. The past she thought she buried had just knocked on her front door. And this time, it came with witnesses. Chike stood frozen. His lips trembled. His hands quivered as he stared at the guests before him. Then his voice, dry and cracked, finally broke the silence. "Your visit to my house is not one of joy, but of sorrow." Everyone fell silent. "Why would you choose to open the injury we've tried so hard to live with? Why now?" His chest rose and fell as tears welled in his eyes. "My beautiful daughter, Celestina," he said with a shaky voice, "got lost 11 years ago. Whether she's alive or dead, no one knows. That was the last time we saw her." Vanessa broke down. Tears streamed down her cheeks. "Oh God, my sister, my friend, my twin soul, how I missed you." She fell into her father's arms, sobbing uncontrollably. Elowen stood still, visibly trembling. Her fingers were clutched to her wrapper like she was holding on to her last sanity. Then, as if something snapped inside her, she turned sharply to the guests. "How can you come here asking to marry a dead girl?" she shouted, her voice breaking, "while her living sister is standing right here." She pointed at Vanessa. "Take her. Marry Vanessa, and you have our full blessings. She's here, alive, ready." She turned to the young groom with pleading eyes. "My daughter is beautiful, obedient. You won't regret it." Then came the unexpected. The elegant elderly woman chuckled softly, shook her head, and said in a calm, composed voice, "Our bride-to-be is alive and well. In fact," she smiled, "she was the one who sent us." The compound went silent. Chike staggered back a step. Elowen's knees gave out. She collapsed into the plastic chair. Vanessa gasped and looked at them all like they were speaking in tongues. What are you saying?" Chike whispered, voice quivering. The groom-to-be pulled out his phone, pressed a button, and lifted it to his ear. It's time, he said. Everyone turned toward the compound gate. The world stopped spinning. Seconds later, the gates creaked open. Heels clicked. Perfume danced in the air. And then a young woman stepped in, her hair packed in a neat bun, her posture graceful. Her skin golden and glowing. But what silenced the world was her face, Celestina. Chike's jaw dropped. Elowen slapped her own thighs, shouting, Jesus! Jesus! What am I seeing? Vanessa took a step forward, then two, then broke into a run and fell at her sister's feet. Sister? Sister? Is it you? Celestina knelt beside her, her own eyes filled with tears. She embraced Vanessa tightly. I missed you too, Nessa, so much. Chike collapsed to his knees, both hands covering his face. Elowen just sat there, shivering uncontrollably. Their dead daughter had returned, not as a corpse, but as a queen. The compound remained quiet, so quiet you could hear hearts beating, fast, loud, scared. Then the elderly man stepped forward, his voice calm, but his words held the weight of 11 years of pain and secrets. He looked directly at Chike, then slowly turned to Elowen. 11 years ago, he began, I visited a piece of land I had just acquired in a small village called Alameda. My plan was to build a health center to help the locals. The family stared at him, their breathing shallow, eyes wide. As we discussed the project with some elders, we were suddenly interrupted by a terrifying noise. At first, we thought it was a wild animal, but then we heard a voice, a young girl, screaming, "Please don't kill me!" Crying, begging, pleading. She sounded no older than 12 or 13. Elowen's face was pale now, her legs trembling. The old man's voice dropped lower. We heard the woman with her shout back in rage. I saw the will. You think I'll sit back and watch you take everything? My daughter gets only 20%. You're not special, Celestina, and I won't let you become the heiress. Vanessa gasped. Chike's hands went over his mouth. Elowen took a step back. The man paused for a moment, then continued. That woman, with the help of 2 hefty men, dragged that poor girl to a deep hole. And to our horror, they buried her alive. Everyone screamed. Yes, he thundered. Buried, alive. Vanessa cried out, holding her sister tighter. The moment they left, I rushed my security men and drivers. By the time they brought her out, she had passed out, cold, lifeless. He swallowed hard, pain visible in his eyes. I spent millions on her, and after 2 days, by God's mercy, she woke up from a coma. But she was afraid, deeply afraid. She remembered everything, the betrayal, the burial, the voice of the woman she once called mother. Elowen dropped to her knees. The old man pointed at Celestina. That girl is the same young woman standing before you today. Gasps echoed around the compound. She was terrified of coming home, so I took her in. I raised her as my own daughter, because I have none. My wife died childless. Celestina became the light in my life. He turned to Chike. From afar, we monitored your family. Everything, every move. I was the one who bought all your properties. The empire, the tall glass building, the factories. All. He faced Elowen again, eyes burning with intensity. So, Madame Elowen, the child you buried 11 years ago is the same one standing here, very much alive. And the irony of it all? He smiled coldly. All the properties you fought her for, every kobo you betrayed her for, she is now the legal owner of them all. Boom. Silence. Celestina stood still. Tears filled her eyes, but she didn't cry. She just looked at the house she once called home, now full of shame and regret. Elowen screamed and fell down. Chike sat motionless, face buried in his palms. Vanessa held Celestina tightly, crying uncontrollably. The visitors stood respectfully, giving them space, but watching, waiting. And then Celestina stepped forward. Her eyes, sharp but filled with pain, scanned the compound, the cracked walls, the broken gate, the dust that settled over everything. She remembered her childhood. She looked down at her once-called parents. Mom, she said, her voice soft, shaking. Chike slowly raised his head. Dad? Elowen stirred on the floor, groaning. Celestina knelt gently beside her, not to comfort but to face her. "Do you remember the sound of the shovel?" Her voice cracked. "When it hit the ground above my head? When I screamed and begged you to stop?" Elowen blinked as tears rolled down her cheeks. She reached out a trembling hand. Celestina pulled back. "I called you Mommy, and you buried me." Everyone went quiet. "I wasn't perfect. I was just a child who loved her family, a child who loved you both." She stood up slowly. "But your greed swallowed your heart. You looked at a girl you raised for 9 years, and still you buried her. Alive." Elowen began crying loudly, hitting her chest, wailing. Forgive me. My demons pushed me. I was desperate." "Desperate?" Celestina snapped, voice rising. "You were desperate enough to murder a child? Over money?" She turned to Chike. "And you, Dad, you have no idea how much I missed you and how costly your mistake was. The mistake of discussing your will with an insider." Chike fell to his knees. "I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I was consoling her when she was crying profusely over my sick body. I thought I was assuring her how well I have planned the future for her and my daughters." Celestina stepped back. Tears had begun to flow now, silently. "I was under that ground, Dad. I heard the birds. I heard the footsteps walk away. I heard nothing else." The elderly man placed a hand on her shoulder. She nodded, then turned to Vanessa. "Sister," Celestina whispered. Vanessa rushed to her, hugging her tightly. "I missed you every single day," she cried. "I used to talk to your clothes. I thought maybe you were taken to heaven by God himself." The two sisters embraced, sobbing in each other's arms. Then the elderly woman cleared her throat gently and said, "We have seen enough, spoken enough. We came to do the right thing." She turned to Chike. "Our son wishes to marry your daughter, but not in this house. We have a mansion ready, and she deserves more than this place of pain and betrayal." Celestina looked at them, then looked at her family. "I came for closure, not to punish, but to remind you that evil never hides forever." She turned slowly and walked toward the car, still holding Vanessa's hand. The elderly man addressed Chike one last time. "We would come back for the big day after you settle in your new home." The engines of the 4 cars started, and just before getting in, Celestina looked back and whispered, "Mom, I refuse to die. I am alive." She entered the car with her sister, Vanessa, and the convoy drove away, leaving behind the broken pieces of a family and a memory that would never be forgotten. For days after the visit, Elowen did not eat. She barely slept. She sat in front of the house from dawn till dusk, staring into nothing, murmuring to herself. Neighbors began whispering. Children avoided her. Even Chike, broken and confused, couldn't get through to her. She no longer responded to greetings. Sometimes she'd laugh out loud suddenly. Other times she would scream and cover her ears, as though she was hearing shovels digging or a child crying from underground. I heard her breathing beneath the soil. I thought it was the wind. I heard her crying, and I told myself it was a bird. Then she'd laugh bitterly and whisper, "She called me Mom," one last time. That evening, it rained. The skies turned dark. Thunder rumbled like the voice of justice. Elowen stood up suddenly from her bench. She walked out into the rain barefoot, her hair unkempt, wrapper soaked. She muttered over and over again, "Don't bury me. Don't bury me. I'm still alive. Mom, please." A neighbor ran after her, shouting, "Mama, where are you going?" But Elowen kept walking, faster. Then she ran, screaming, laughing. "I am the gravedigger. I am the gravedigger." She ran into the middle of the road. Vehicles swerved. People screamed. She stopped in the middle, lifted her hands to the sky, and shouted, "Celestina, come out of the ground and bury me instead." A bus nearly hit her, screeching to a stop just inches away, but she didn't move. By the time the police were called, Elowen was sitting in a muddy puddle, laughing and talking to herself. She's the owner now. She owns it all, even my thoughts. She was taken to a psychiatric hospital the next day. The doctor diagnosed guilt-triggered psychosis. And as for Chike, he visits her every week, but each time she looks at him with blank eyes and says, I buried her. I want everything, but I lost everything. Then she'd weep and whisper the same name again and again. Celestina, Celestina. Hello, besties. Wow, what a journey this story took us on. From pain to betrayal and finally, justice. Let this be a reminder that evil may last for a while, but it never wins in the end. Whatever you're going through, don't give up. Your story isn't over yet. The moral? Greed destroys, jealousy blinds, but truth and love always find their way back, no matter how long it takes. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate each and every one of you. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. What part touched you the most? I love you all, and God bless you all. Until next time, stay safe, stay kind, and stay strong. Bye, besties.